Fabien, what do you advise a writer who's determined to break in at Marvel?
Right now, what we generally tend to say is that if you're going to school, continue going to school, take as many writing courses as you can because you learn a lot. I know I did. That's my advice because I learned a lot in college taking a lot of writing courses. But plan to have a career. You know, it's very difficult to make a career out of comic book writing. It really is. But you can make a career in a production department. You can make a career in a promotions department, an accounting department, whatever it takes. And if you want to continue to write, you try to work through the independents. Try to work through the smaller press. Find people at conventions who draw if you want to write. Work with them. Become friends with them. Create a project. You know, offer it to a small independent publisher. Maybe they'll publish it. Develop a body of work that Marvel or DC or Dark Horse or whoever will see and hire you as a result. If you look at the current Marvel and DC writers in the last 5 years, the new ones, they have either come up through the ranks within Marvel, such as myself or Peter David, or they have come through the ranks of the independents in terms of quality work that got recognized, such as Mike Barron, Gerard Jones, Mark Vierheiden. These are all examples I tend to use. Those are the two different systems that we seem to have right now for getting work at Marvel or DC. I know of no writer in 5 years at Marvel who came in off the street or came into a convention, dropped down a story synopsis, and got hired as a writer on the spot. I know of plenty of artists who have gotten work that way, but art is a lot easier. You see it and you know. Writing requires a lot more work on the part of the person you're showing it to. And we're lazy by nature. We don't want to read a 3-page synopsis on a super powy Fantastic Four story, you know?
Conventions are a great place to make contacts, but remember, the comic community is tightly knit, and if you act obnoxious and annoying, word gets around fast. Okay, so you've taken time to notice the flowers, eavesdropped on real conversations, maybe taken a course in accounting just in case. One barrier left before you quit your day job, getting your first assignment. Suddenly everyone has different advice. Schmooze your way in, work your way in, beg for work, demand work. Here's how Michael Kaluta, the artist on Starstruck and one of the premier cover artists in the business, got his first regular gig on DC's series The Shadow. So how did you end up doing the artwork for The Shadow?
Oh, by being in the right place at the right time. In those days, I had very little work, and all of us young artists who had no work hung out at DC Comics. They had a coffee room. Sit in the coffee room, drink lots of coffee, Coca-Cola, eat donuts, and so on and so forth, and flirt with whichever secretaries came through. And every once in a while, people who were working at DC Comics came in there to have coffee and so on and so forth, and we'd sit there, push our portfolios in front of us, and perhaps something would happen. And one day, Denny O'Neil and Steve Skates, I believe it was, two writers that worked at DC Comics at the time, were talking to each other about The Shadow, blah, 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 blah. Oh, we can't. Oh, we want to get Jim Aparo, but he's too busy. Oh, we want to get this guy, we can't. And, gee, we don't know who to get. And my friend Steve Harper, sitting with, leaned over and said, Kaluta, they want you to do it. Go ahead. I said, what do you mean they want me to do it? Go ahead, go ahead. They wouldn't be saying it like that. They want you to ask. So I, Denny, how about me? I said, I'll check on it. Out of the room, you got it. And it was that fast. Okay, you got it. A 20-page book, bi-monthly, and I had the most I'd done at that time, I think, 5-page installments that I would take 2 months on. Say, that's how I got it.
So what advice do you have for the artist who's just starting out?
Set your sights beyond comic books. Set your sights beyond making any kind of money. But this is not really necessarily good advice. This is advice that I would give. Because the joy, for me, the joy in just drawing, and drawing well, is the payment. And if you do that true to yourself, eventually, wherever you are, it'll catch up with you. The fame, if you will, the money, the jobs that are custom made for you, and so on and so forth, will catch up with you. You don't have to go out and find them, because you've been true to yourself.
I teach a course in SVA once a week, and the students they seem to want instant gratification. They want to hit the big time like overnight. That's the impression I get, not from all of them, but from many of them. And just doesn't happen that way. Not only it doesn't happen that way in comics, it doesn't happen that way in film, it doesn't happen that way in any business. Nothing happens overnight. It's a devotion, an inner love for what you're doing. And if you don't love what you're doing, you're in the wrong business, is what I tell them. You have to love it. If it's a complete, utter devotion to it. I remember once, when I was very young, I did something that my folks really got on me for. And what my mother did to take it out on me, I was about 13 or so, or 12 at the time. She took my pencil and pad away from me and wouldn't allow me to draw for a month. It must have been pretty bad for her to do that. And I just couldn't stay away. I would sneak in the pencil and pad whenever I had the opportunity, and I would draw. So long as she wasn't around, I figured that would be all right. But that's how painful it was to me. There are some of my students are that dedicated, but not enough of them.
Right.
I think some of them are not totally aware of what they want to do yet. They're sort of flexing their wings a bit, they're trying themselves out and just seeing where they might fit in. It's a difficult world today. It's very hard to get yourself placed. But above all, I think if the love is there, that inner feeling, that inner something that you have to be successful, then you will. I would never put money first or the desire to be famous ever, just to have a good time doing it, and the rest will follow.
Practice, become better, become good, travel, learn, improve yourself. The more you know, the more you can put out. And don't forget that eventually it will be a crime to print paper, because we have to cut a tree to do it. And half of the world, it's in poverty because we are making these deserts, because there's no trees around. The forests are being trimmed, so paper will be a crime. So where are you going to draw it? You're going to do it for television. So don't forget that 10 years from now, the whole world is going to be different, enormously different. So think ahead. What are the mediums that are going to be more important? Comics can be drawn, animation exists. Don't limit yourself. Don't copy superheroes artists. They are already copying all the superhero artists. The first people didn't copy comics. They copied masters. They went to the museums. They spent hours sketching with pencils. That's what they have to do.
Okay, let's distill all the advice into a 10-point checklist. 1, have some talent. Talent is either there or it isn't. I can't sing, I don't try, people are glad. 2, decide if you really want it. Make sure you desperately need to do this for a living. 3, practice. Master your tools. Learn everything everyone else knows. 4, read everything. You never know what ideas will put you on the cutting edge. 5, take courses, join workshops, read how-to books and magazines. You should know about plot structure, 4-point oppositions, internal conflict. 6, practice every day. Set a work schedule, set deadlines, and meet them. Treat it as a hobby, and that's what it will always be. 7, master outside skills. Study other fields. Stanley Robinson's passion for mountain climbing has inspired his writing. 8, study the real world. Observe how things look, how people talk, how they react and feel. 9, get your work out there. Make sure manuscripts are neatly typed with no spelling mistakes and include sufficient postage. And finally, 10, find out what the market wants. There's no point in creating the best TV Western ever if TV networks don't want Westerns. What about art? What about finding my voice? That happens or it doesn't. But you can't achieve art until you've learned craft. Even Picasso first mastered the old masters. And if you don't want to compromise your vision, fine. Just don't bother commercial publishers. Keep a diary or a journal. Finally, here's some choice words from Dan Piraro, the mind behind Bizarro. Dan, before you go, any advice to the eager young cartoonist?
Yeah, stay away, because there's enough competition, and there's a limited space in the papers, and limited space in the bookstores. And one of you is going to come along and be a lot better than me, and you're going to take all my fans, and people are going to be saying, oh, that new cartoon, the, Evelyn's buttocks is a lot better than that crap we've been reading for years, Bizarro. So skip it, don't bother. Go into something else. Go into fine art. There's a lot of money in fine art. That's a good career. So do that.
Next week on Second Nature, fewer and fewer students are choosing careers in science. One university is reversing the trend with courses entitled The Physics of String Bikinis, How to Make Millions Through Cloning, and Einstein and Heisenberg's Excellent Adventure.
School's in for summer. The open